Hello, welcome to PlayStation Access. I'm Rob. Joining us is Rosie.
Hello, everyone.
Rosie, you've been playing Stellar Blade, which is out on PS5 on the 26th of April. I'm intrigued by this game. I've seen the trailers for it. It looks like a really cool action game. You know, it's giving me sort of like Devil May Cry, Bayonetta vibes. Are those fair comparisons to be making? Like, from your experience with the game, what is the combat like? That's like my biggest question.
In all honesty, it's not what I thought it was going to be. It's a lot more Souls-like than I thought it was going to be. So again, from the trailers, I thought it was going to be very similar to Bayonetta with the... I mean, it's still got the very fast-paced action, but it's a lot more... Well, Bayonetta's also strategic, but there's a lot more Souls-like elements you've got to consider.
Okay.
So, for example, there's... Enemies have different forms of attacks. You have ones, you know, like the blue ring comes up and you can't block those blue rings. Those ones you can have to do a perfect dodge in order to attack them.
Right.
Yellow ones, which you can't block, but you can dodge. You know, loads of elements like that you need to consider. You've got Eve, who's the character you're controlling, can block, and also you can get perfect parries. So if you're blocking, obviously that defends you a bit more.
Yeah.
But if you do perfect parries, which is when you block at the perfect moment and you get a cool shling, you have a stagger bar or a balance meter that reduces on the enemy, and when that's reduced so much, you can go in and do a retribution move, which is a really cool, like, cinematic move. The enemy's like, oh no, I'm on the floor now. You just go in there, stab a sword, and you just slice them up in half, pretty much.
So we're talking like really challenging combat here. When you mentioned something being Souls-like, I immediately think, okay, challenging. Like, how easy have you found it to get to grips with the combat system?
It does slap you around a bit at first. There's
oh, good.
You know, it's the sort of situation where if an enemy gets you in a combo, if you're blocking, I don't know if it's just because of me, but I'm always trying to get the perfect parry so I can knock them off their balance. So even if you let go of L1 for a little bit and they slap you, that's it. They can get you in a chain and you can take loads of damage. So it really is a game that sometimes it's beneficial to be patient, although sometimes if you're trying to be too cautious and too like, I've got to get that timing right, and you're not exactly fully practiced in it yet, then you're going to get slapped around a lot. But I mean, I picked up on it pretty quickly once I got slapped about a bit. So if I can do it, anyone can do it.
Well, I don't think that's necessarily true, Rosie. Like, if you can do it, I probably can't.
Well, there's things that you can do as well. There's a skill tree that you can purchase abilities, which will purchase with experience points you get from attacking enemies, such as perfect dodge, where again, if you dodge at the right time, you get a cool red slow-mo, like whoo. There's also areas that they're like supply camps, and when you sit there, if you go to a supply camp specifically rather than a Legion camp, there are little stations that you can use, and they allow you to upgrade your attack power, for example. So there are loads of different elements to help. There are shops that you can use to buy items, again, to help you out, because you've only got a certain amount of health you can use before you sit down and rest. And again, in the Souls-like fashion, when you sit down and rest, all the enemies get respawned.
Right, okay.
So from what I played, we had 3 health potions, but you can also purchase other items, equip them in the fight, and then that will also help you. So it does give you plenty of stuff to aid you in battle, but still, there's also enemies hiding around corners. The amount of times I've been running around exploring this beautiful world, and there's an enemy that's just as close up to the wall around the corner as possible, coming at me just with its big old long arms. Oh, it can get you by surprise.
So structurally, it sounds quite similar to Dark Souls in terms of, you mentioned there, respawning enemies hiding around corners to catch you out, and a high, you know, a challenging combat. But at the same time, from what I've seen of it, it does look quite flashy as well and flamboyant, and, you know, a little bit of that Devil May Cry / Bayonetta cinematic gameplay combat to it. So how does the combat feel just from in moment to moment to play? You mentioned being patient about it, but, you know, how flashy and flamboyant can you be with it?
Yeah, I mean, you get beta skills, which are your flashy moves. So when you attack an enemy or do a parry, that builds up a bar, and then it's like, you can use one of your beta skills now, and those are the skills where you attack, and then there's little particles that flash up, and you can stab them and go like, Wah! Really aggressively, do a cool swoosh attack. There's one as well which does damage to shields, which is really cool. So those are the more cinematic attacks.
Yeah.
There's a lot of flashy combat from both Eve as well as the enemies, but it's the moves such as the retribution.
Yeah.
There's also quick time events and button mashing moments as well in some instances. So I remember just fighting the boss challenge, and then suddenly it was like, keep on pressing square, and I thought, oh god, as you see its chain face going into your sword.
Right.
So there's a lot of cinematic moments like that.
What are the bosses like?
They are, like, I really like the designs of the enemies. I think they're really creepy, really eerie, but again, like you would expect from a challenging combat style game, they do like to slap you around a bit. I feel like I'm saying slap you around an awful lot in this.
You are, Rosie, yes.
But that's what they do. The first boss I came across had these two massive, like, bulging balls on its arms, which, you know, it, like, swung around and do big hitters. So again, that enemy was slow in its movements, but when you learn how the timing of it, you can get some really good perfect parries. But again, if not, then you're getting stuck in that chain as it swings its arms. The next one I fought had electrical abilities, so that introduced me more to, oh, you might want to step back a bit here because it's going to do more ranged attacks, more projectiles, more things falling from the sky. And then the boss challenge, the one with the massive chainsaw face, was a lot more aggressive, a lot more speedy. So the bosses, like I said, like all challenging combat games, loads of different varieties, loads of ways for you to try out your skills and give you different experiences each time.
Would you say the combat is like the main meat of the gameplay, or, you know, how much does traversal and exploration play a part in the game, or is it all about that combat?
Well, the combat, you know, as you're exploring the world, you keep on coming across enemies who say, haha, give me a fight. But the exploration is also a big part of it. You find loads of little items and bits of the story from these corpses lying around. There are some corpses that if you find it, sort of builds up a meter, and if you find, I think it's 3 of them, you can upgrade your HP, for example.
Okay.
And also there are some instances where there's a gate or something that's got a passcode on it, so you need to run around, look for that code. You have it in your pause menu, but I like to try and memorize it. So memorize it, run to the gate, and then you input the code, and then you can carry on. So it's very beneficial to explore. There's also a scan mechanic, so when you scan, you can see platforms that you can climb up, because some of them can be quite well hidden. So, I mean, when I played the preview, I gave it a second run, and when I did, I saw some secrets that I completely missed underwater. I did like a little dive, and there was a box there. I thought, oh gosh, I missed this. Ledges I could climb onto.
So you can swim in the game?
You can swim in the game, yeah, so you have some lovely water graphics. And also, just with water graphics, I really like the rain. It like splatters on the screen as you're running around.
I do like some nice rain effects.
Yeah, and you can feel the rain as well in the DualSense from the haptic feedback.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, one of those like, cozy rain vibes.
And I was watching you play, visually it does look really beautiful. Like, environments, like you said, like the rain, it looks, you know, it's great.
The world is really stunning, and one thing I really like about it is the set pieces when you're running around. As you're running around, there are buildings which are collapsing. The very beginning of what I played had this massive war that was going on, and it reminded me a lot of the introduction to Mass Effect 3. You know how epic it was when you look up at the sky and you just see all this carnage. That's exactly what was happening. There was giant enemies just absolutely clobbering everyone, buildings falling down, explosions happening. I even had it that I was so busy focusing on one building falling down, there was something like, you know, missiles falling down on me that I had to avoid. I was too busy looking at a building collapsing, and it just completely got me. I was like, you know what, fair play. I should have looked at where I was going rather than this tumbling building. So it's a very beautiful rundown world, which is a weird thing to say, but like that.
Yeah, I get it. I am intrigued, and I've had this one down as something that I definitely want to try out. You know, I love those kind of Devil May Cry, Bayonetta action games, and I know, you know, you've mentioned that it's got more of a deliberate, slower pace than those, potentially more akin to like the Souls games, but even so, it sounds really intriguing. And you can also try it out for yourself, because there is a playable demo available on PS5 on the 29th of March, so please do check it out. Let us know in the comments what you make of the game. Subscribe and like this video if you found it helpful, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on anything from the world of PlayStation. Thanks for watching.